Hello everyone. Today I'm going to show you 50 cavities of patients that I have seen in my office so you can see what a cavity can look like. This is Dr. Tamisha Denis and this is The Modern Smile. I'm going to show you some big ones and small ones. Now, just to keep this moving pretty fast, because 50 cavities is a lot of cavities to go through, I've only allotted 10 seconds per tooth so that you can see not only what it looks like, but what ended up being needed to fix it. So let's go ahead and get started. Here we go. Here's tooth number 1. On the back side of it, you can see a broken piece. We end up needing to do a white filling on this tooth. Here's the second one. This is an old silver filling in which the front part broke off. Because the silver filling is so large, we end up needing to do a crown. This tooth looks pretty nasty, but it broke off completely to the gum line. This is on the lower left. This tooth had to be pulled and treatment planned for an implant. This tooth was ground down because of grinding and clenching of the teeth, and a part of the silver filling came out. This tooth ended up needing a crown. This tooth also had a silver filling on it, and on the back side you see just a small chip. Because it was pretty conservative, we just did a filling. This tooth also was pretty badly broken. This is on the lower right, and because of the large decay, the tooth had to be extracted and implant. This is actually on a 14-year-old girl. The cavity was so deep that it went into the nerve. She had a lot of pain and we needed a root canal and crown. This is one of our smaller cavities here. We drilled out the brown portions that you see on the tooth and put in a white filling. This is the same tooth. Oops, we have a repeat. This is the same one that I said needed a root canal and a crown. Don't worry, I got more than 50 on here. This next tooth is on the upper right, and it's the last tooth in the mouth. It ended up needing a filling, so we drilled out the brown portions of the tooth and filled the tooth up. This was a silver filling. I always say some silvers need crowns when they're replaced and some need fillings. This one was modest enough that there's enough tooth to do a new white filling. Now this tooth ended up needing a crown because if you can tell, not only has it been filled before, but it still had some silver left over and there was too little tooth to do another filling. This tooth has a smaller hole in it in which there was a white filling on it from before, so that small hole needed to be drilled out and new filling placed. This tooth is actually on the top and it's right at the gum line. We call this a class 5 lesion because it's at the gum line. We had to drill out that brown portion to place a new white filling. This is the same kind of filling, but this is on a molar tooth towards the back, right at the gum line. These can get a little tricky because we're going down below the gum line. This is another smaller cavity, actually deceivingly smaller because those red dots you see there are actually holes in the tooth, so we had to drill out and put a filling. Here's another cavity. I'm actually looking at the one towards the back. There's a cavity there. We had to drill out the dark areas of the tooth to put a new white filling. Here's another silver filling. This is a tricky one because even though it's larger, a lot of the natural tooth is still there. So drilling out the silver filling to put a new white filling was just fine. That's actually a wisdom tooth we're looking at down in the corner, which was affecting the tooth in front of it. That can be quite dangerous because you can lose 2 teeth, so the back tooth needed to be extracted. Now this tooth, you can see the kind of brown area down into those grooves, drilled out that dark area, which is a cavity, to place in a new filling. This silver filling actually cracked the back half of the tooth if you see towards the upper right of the screen, and so that this tooth, even though the silver filling is small, needed a crown. This next tooth also looked like it was starting to crack, so that big hole actually had a silver. It fell out, and because of the back end was cracked, we also needed a crown. This tooth is a little bit different. I call these sneaky cavities because between the teeth, it just looks a little dark, but there's a quite large cavity. This tooth needed a root canal and crown. This is a similar type cavity. That dark area represents the cavity, and this actually just needed a filling. This next cavity is one of the smaller cavities that I have here. A lot of times when I have small ones like this, I don't even need to give anesthesia. I drill out the brown portions and put in a new white filling. This one was a pretty bad one. It was a nice big hole towards the back of the tooth. Even though it looked pretty bad, I ended up just doing a filling and the patient was just fine. This next one was a silver filling. Also, if you could see that kind of gray area that starts to form towards the bottom, that means that the filling is leaking, and we replace that with a crown. This back one, you could see a dark area on the back side and also a silver filling. We drilled out those two areas and placed a new white filling. This tooth also could be replaced. It's an old silver filling. If you look towards the left side, there's a hole in the old silver filling, so it could have been replaced with a filling. This piece of tooth, even though you see the hole towards the front, that chalky white area is actually where the decay is underneath. So half of the tooth was missing and we needed a crown. This tooth was so badly decayed that the decay went below the gum line, and whenever decay goes below the gum line, we ended up needing to extract it. This cavity is actually the one towards the top of the screen at the gum line, and that cavity was right there where we needed to fill. These can be quite dangerous. Here we have another tooth. It's not the best view, but because the top of the tooth had so much of a large filling and it went down to the side and started to crack, we needed a crown. Here's another tooth where we used to have a white filling and the white filling broke. We just had to do a new white filling. On this next tooth, unfortunately, if you look at the split from the top to the bottom, this tooth was actually split in two, and we needed to extract the tooth and do an implant. This is actually the same tooth from a different angle in which I'm sticking my instrument to show how the tooth is flexing apart. This is called a vertical fracture, and there's nothing that can be done to fix it. So this tooth actually is a molar tooth that has an old silver filling that was at the gum line and started to decay. So this tooth actually, we needed to do a new filling. This is one of the reasons that I'm not a huge fan of partial dentures. As you can see, that metal clasp gripping the tooth has caused a cavity at the gum line and start to erode the root of the tooth. This next one is actually your two front teeth. If you look really closely, you can see these divots in the front teeth that need to be filled. One of the things that happens as you get older, if you had sealants as a kid and the sealant doesn't come out, it will actually start to attract food and cause a cavity around the sealant. This next tooth, if you can see towards the top of the screen, there's a dark area which is a cavity that's forming, and if this cavity doesn't get filled, it'll take the whole back of the tooth off. People don't know that you can get a cavity between your front teeth. So here you can see a dark area forming between the bottom teeth. The picture is upside down, and that also needs to be filled with a new filling. Here's another cavity that happened on a front tooth. This time we're on the top teeth, not the bottom teeth. Cavities on front teeth start in the back and move forward till there's a hole. That one needed a filling. Here's another tooth that had a filling and the filling fell out. You can see some dark areas in the corner. That tooth just needed to be refilled. Here we have another tooth that half of the tooth is gone and the decay is below the gum line. What happens when a tooth gets such a huge cavity? The gums start to grow over the broken piece. Here we have another tooth. This is a premolar. This is another situation where the filling came out and all we had to do is place a new filling in this tooth. Here we have a tooth that broke off. It had a crown. When the crown came off, so did all of the tooth inside of the other crown. That tooth needed to be pulled and an implant placed. Here we have a silver filling, and the silver filling is cracking and breaking down along the margins. We just drilled out that silver filling and placed a new filling. This tooth deceivingly looks more or worse than it actually is. We just drilled out the brown part of the tooth and placed a new filling there. This is one of the smaller cavities. Usually, again, these kind of fillings I'll do even without anesthesia, drill out the brown parts and place a new filling. This tooth is deceivingly bigger than it looks. It was actually a deeper cavity in general, and that one I did have to numb in order to place the new filling. A lot of times when a tooth breaks off, the tooth next to it is also suffering. The back side of this tooth needed to be drilled and a new filling placed, and the tooth behind it needed to be extracted. This last one is most common cavities I see. It's a little bit more medium size in the grooves of the teeth. Drilled that out, place a new white filling. Thank you for watching this video about 50 plus cavities that I've seen in my office. I was originally going to do 100, so maybe we'll do another video if you guys like it a lot, and I'll do 50 more. If you have any questions about the cavities that you've seen, or if something kind of looks like something that you have in your mouth, make sure to go to your dentist and get it checked out so that the cavity doesn't continue to grow and you end up needing a root canal or an extraction. If you have any comments, please leave them below. I love to see all of your questions and comments, and I try to respond to as many of them as I can. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you for watching.